He said it over dessert. I wish you were never born. Everyone laughed, except me. I put my fork down slowly. My heart was racing, but I smiled. Then I said my one line. The room went dead silent. She never spoke to me again. I, 32M, sat at the far end of the table that night, fork in hand, watching my family laugh at something my stepfather had said. The dessert plates had just been placed down, some fancy tiramisu my mother had ordered from that bakery she loved. Everyone was in good spirits. My younger half-brother was scrolling through his phone between bites, and my stepsister was telling some story about her promotion at work. It was supposed to be a celebration dinner for her, actually. The whole family had gathered. My stepfather raised his glass and made a toast about family and success, and everyone clinked their glasses together. I participated, smiled at the right moments, kept my posture relaxed. I had learned over the years how to exist in these gatherings without drawing attention to myself. That was the safest way. Then came the moment that changed everything. My stepfather turned toward me with that familiar look in his eyes, the one that always preceded some cutting remark disguised as humor. He had been drinking more than usual that night, his face slightly flushed, his gestures becoming broader and more animated. He pointed his spoon at me across the table and said it. He wished I was never born. Just like that. Casual. Matter of fact. As if commenting on the weather. The table erupted in laughter. Not nervous laughter or shocked gasps. Real laughter. My mother laughed the hardest, her hand going to her chest like he had told the funniest joke she had ever heard. My half-brother snorted into his napkin. My stepsister grinned and shook her head, apparently amused by the boldness of the statement. I put my fork down slowly, carefully placing it parallel to the edge of my plate. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, behind my eyes, in my fingertips. But I kept my face neutral. I even smiled a little. Just enough. Everyone was still chuckling when I spoke. I kept my voice calm and measured, looking directly at my stepfather. I told him I had always wondered when he would finally say it out loud instead of just implying it for the past 20 years. Then I thanked him for the honesty. I said it was refreshing. The laughter died instantly. It was like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. My stepfather's smile froze on his face, then slowly melted into something between confusion and anger. My mother's expression shifted from amusement to panic in seconds. She started to say something about it being just a joke, that I needed to lighten up, that I was being too sensitive. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I simply continued. I told them I understood now that this was how they really felt, and that I appreciated the clarity. I said I would not waste any more of their time or mine pretending we were a real family. Then I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair, and walked toward the door. My mother called after me, her voice rising in pitch. She said I was overreacting, that I was ruining my stepsister's celebration, that I was being dramatic. My stepfather said nothing, just stared at his plate with his jaw clenched. My half-brother looked uncomfortable, but stayed silent. My stepsister actually told me to sit down and stop making everything about myself. I left without another word. The next morning, I received a text from my mother. She demanded I apologize to everyone for making a scene. She said my stepfather had been drinking and I should have known not to take it seriously. She called me ungrateful and reminded me of everything they had done for me over the years. The roof over my head, the food, the private school education my stepfather had paid for. I did not respond. Over the following week, I received multiple messages from various family members. My stepsister sent a long paragraph about how I had embarrassed her at her celebration dinner, how I had always been jealous of her success, how I needed to grow up. My half-brother sent a brief message saying I should just apologize and move on because it was not that serious. My mother called 17 times. I let every call go to voicemail. I spent that week in my apartment, thinking, really thinking, about my childhood, about the patterns, about how long I had accepted being the outsider in my own family. My biological father had left when I was 3. My mother remarried when I was 7. My stepfather had 2 children from his previous marriage who visited on weekends at first, then moved in permanently when I was 10. From that point on, I had slowly become invisible in my own home. Every achievement was downplayed. Every mistake was amplified. Every family photo somehow managed to cut me out or position me at the edge of the frame. I had convinced myself it was normal, that I was being too sensitive, that I should be grateful for having a stable home. But that comment at dinner had ripped away the comfortable lie I had been telling myself. I began making plans. Quiet plans. Methodical plans. I worked in finance at a mid-level firm, nothing spectacular but stable. I had been saving money for years without any clear goal in mind. Now I had one. I started looking at apartments in a different city, 3 hours away. Somewhere I could start completely fresh. I began documenting everything. Old text messages, emails, photos. I created a timeline of incidents I had buried or minimized over the years. 2 weeks after the dinner, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. She did not knock, just used the spare key I had given her years ago for emergencies. I heard her come in while I was working from home. She walked into my living room and started talking immediately, her voice high and strained. She said I was tearing the family apart. She said my stepfather felt terrible and that he had been drinking too much that night and did not mean it. She said everyone was upset with me for holding a grudge over something so small. She told me I needed to come to dinner that Sunday and make things right. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I asked her a simple question. I asked if she remembered my 14th birthday, the one where my stepfather had scheduled my half-brother's soccer tournament viewing party for the same day, and she had told me we would celebrate my birthday the following week. Then forgot entirely. She blinked at me, caught off guard. She said that was years ago and completely different. I asked if she remembered my college graduation, the one where my entire family had left early because my stepsister had a migraine and needed to go home. I had stood alone in the parking lot afterward, holding my diploma, watching other families take photos together. Her face changed. She told me I was being manipulative, that I was cherry-picking negative moments, that every family had difficulties. I agreed with her. I said every family did have difficulties, but not every family had a father figure who openly wished one of the children had never been born, and a mother who laughed when he said it. She tried to hug me then, tears starting to form in her eyes. She said she was sorry, that she did not realize I felt this way, that we could work through this together. She said she loved me. I stepped back. I told her the key she had used to get in needed to be left on the counter before she left. I said I would be moving at the end of the month and would send her my new address once I was settled, but visits needed to be scheduled in advance. I said I needed space to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with her going forward. She became angry then. She said I was being cruel and punishing her for one mistake. She said I was breaking her heart. She said my stepfather was a good man who had provided for me when he did not have to. I told her she was right. He did not have to, and neither did I. She left the key on the counter and walked out. I heard her crying in the hallway. The next day, I received a message from my stepfather. It was the first direct communication I had ever received from him outside of necessary logistics. He said he wanted to talk man to man. He suggested meeting for coffee. I agreed. Part of me was curious. Part of me wanted to hear what he would say when the audience was gone. We met at a quiet cafe near his office. He arrived 10 minutes late, looking tired. He ordered black coffee and got straight to the point. He said he had made a comment in poor taste and that he understood why I was upset, but I was blowing things out of proportion. He said my mother was devastated and that I was punishing her unfairly. I asked him if he meant it. The comment about wishing I was never born. He paused. He looked into his coffee cup for a long time. Then he said he had never asked to become a father to another man's child. He said he had done his best, but it had always been complicated. He said he resented the way my mother had expected him to love me the same way he loved his own children. At least he was being honest. I thanked him for finally saying what he had clearly felt for 25 years. I told him I would not be attending any more family gatherings and that he could consider himself off the hook. He had fulfilled his obligation. I was an adult now. He did not need to pretend anymore. He actually looked relieved. He said he hoped I would not make things difficult for my mother, and that he expected me to be civil if we happened to cross paths at holidays. I told him I would not be attending holidays anymore either. He finished his coffee quickly after that and left. Update 1. I moved exactly 4 weeks after the dinner. I found a decent apartment in a city where I knew no one. I transferred to a different branch of my company. I packed my belongings, hired movers, and left. My mother sent multiple messages during the move, begging me to reconsider. She said I was overreacting. She said I was hurting her. She said families were supposed to forgive each other. I sent her a single response. I told her I forgave her years ago for choosing her new family over me. I said I did not hold it against her anymore. But forgiveness did not mean I had to continue participating in a dynamic that made me feel worthless. I said I hoped she had a good life, and I meant it. She called me cruel and selfish. She said I would regret this when she was gone someday. She said I was no better than my biological father who had abandoned her. That was the last message I read from her. I muted the conversation after that. My half-brother reached out once, asking if I was really never coming back. He said it felt weird without me around. I told him he would adjust, and that if he ever wanted to have a relationship separate from the rest of the family, I was open to it. He never responded. My stepsister sent a final message saying I was toxic and that she was glad I was gone because I had always brought negative energy to family events. I did not reply. In my new city, I started fresh. I joined a gym. I started going to therapy. I made new friends through work and hobby groups. I dated. I built a life that was entirely mine. 6 months after I moved, I received a wedding invitation from my half-brother. The envelope was addressed to my old apartment and had been forwarded. Inside was a generic invitation with no personal note. I was invited to the ceremony. No mention of being in the wedding party or having any special role. I sent a polite decline with a small gift card. I did not attend. My mother sent me a long email after the wedding. She said I had embarrassed the family by not attending. She said people had asked where I was, and she had to make excuses. She said my half-brother had been hurt by my absence. She said I was selfish and vindictive, and that I was using the past as an excuse to punish everyone. I read the email once and deleted it. Update 2. A year and a half after I left, I received an unexpected message from my stepsister. She said she needed to talk to me about something important and asked if we could meet. Her tone was different, less aggressive, almost hesitant. I was skeptical, but curiosity won. I agreed to a phone call. She told me she had gotten divorced. Her marriage had fallen apart after 3 years, and during the process, she had started going to therapy. She said her therapist had helped her recognize patterns in her family dynamics. She said she had been thinking about me a lot, about how I had been treated growing up, about the dinner incident. She apologized. She said she had participated in making me feel like an outsider because it had elevated her own position in the family hierarchy. She said she had been threatened by any attention I received because it meant less attention for her. She said she finally understood why I had left. I listened. I did not accept or reject the apology immediately. I asked her why she was telling me this now. She said she realized she had learned the behavior from watching my stepfather and my mother. She said she had caught herself treating her ex-husband the same way when he did not meet her expectations, making cutting remarks, laughing at his expense, excluding him from decisions. She said she had become what she had been taught. I appreciated the honesty. I told her I was glad she was working on herself. I said I was not ready to have a relationship with her yet, but I was not closed to the possibility in the future. I said healing was not linear, and I needed to continue focusing on my own growth. She accepted that. She said she understood. She said she did not expect anything from me, but wanted me to know she was sorry. We ended the call cordially. Update 3. 2 years after the dinner, my mother had a health scare. My half-brother called me directly. He said she had been hospitalized with a heart issue, and the doctors were running tests. He said she had been asking for me. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger, guilt, sadness, indifference. I asked him how serious it was. He said they were not sure yet, but it looked manageable with lifestyle changes and medication. He said she was scared and wanted to see me. I thought about it for 2 days. Then I sent my half-brother a message. I said I hoped she recovered fully and that I would be willing to visit once she was stable and home, but only if she agreed to certain conditions. I said we would meet alone, not with the entire family present. I said I would not tolerate any guilt-tripping or manipulation. I said if she genuinely wanted to repair our relationship, it would require her acknowledging the harm that had been done. He passed the message along. My mother agreed. I visited her 3 weeks later. She looked smaller somehow, frielier. The health scare had shaken her. We sat in her living room while my stepfather was conveniently out running errands. She cried immediately. She said she had been a terrible mother. She said she had chosen her marriage over her son. She said she did not know how to fix it, but she wanted to try. I told her I appreciated the acknowledgement. I said I was not sure what our relationship would look like going forward, but I was willing to try supervised visits and phone calls. I said I would not be attending family gatherings with my stepfather present, and that was non-negotiable. She asked if I would ever forgive her fully. I told her forgiveness was not a destination, but an ongoing process. I said I was working on it. We talked for 2 hours. It was not perfect. She still made excuses at times, still minimized certain things. But it was a start. I left feeling emotionally exhausted, but slightly hopeful. 3 months later, I had dinner with just my mother at a restaurant halfway between our cities. No stepfather, no siblings, just us. It was awkward at times, but we managed. She asked about my life, my work, my apartment. I answered honestly. She shared updates about her health and her therapy sessions, which she had started attending. Progress was slow. Some months we talked regularly. Other months we barely communicated. The relationship was fragile, conditional, but it existed. My stepfather and I never reconciled. I saw him briefly at my half-brother's second wedding 3 years later. We nodded at each other from across the room. That was the extent of our interaction. My stepsister and I eventually rebuilt a cautious friendship. We met for coffee occasionally, kept conversations light, respected boundaries. She had remarried someone kinder, started her own therapy journey, and seemed genuinely different. As for me, I built a life I was proud of. I got promoted twice at work. I bought a small house. I dated someone seriously for the first time in years. I surrounded myself with people who valued me, who did not make me feel like an afterthought. The scar from that dinner never fully disappeared, but it stopped defining me. I stopped being the person who stayed quiet when someone wished I was never born. I became the person who walked away. And then I became the person who built something better. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us.